Services is the big question mark for us hosts. I think it's a really good thing for Airbnb. Obviously, they've got a new revenue stream. It's great for them, but
I think we need to talk about is to spread the awareness of why I'm encouraging so many people to opt out of this.
if you guys want to opt out, what's that process? We know what it was like 2 weeks ago that Airbnb came out with their big summer release. I think it's probably the biggest release they've made in quite a while. Last year they had icons that they released in the summer, but this year coming out with some things that are really going to impact hosts. You know, icons didn't really do much to us. It was a little marketing thing, I think, that Airbnb is really good at. Services is the big question mark for us hosts. I think it's a really good thing for Airbnb. Obviously, they've got a new revenue stream. It's great for them, but for us, it's interesting. And I think, you know, you especially have been touting how hosts can do this and make money without using Airbnb, right? Without, you know, build relationships with other folks, build relationships with repeat guests as well, get them onto your direct site and book direct without having to pay the 18% or whatever Airbnb charges. But now with services, there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot more than that. I know you've been speaking to a lot of people on this too. So Mark, what are your just overall thoughts on what's going on right now?
Let's just sort of rewind a little bit. So the summer update, for those who have been under a rock and haven't seen what was been happening, they did a big announcement. They had a big event in Los Angeles. A good buddy of mine, Jamie Lane from AirDNA, he went along and he was live tweeting from the event, which, you know, it sounded like an Apple event. It was one of those. So what did they do? So first and foremost, they updated quite a lot of little things and a couple of big things. So one of the big things is they brought back experiences. So experiences was a thing. They stopped it. They sort of rejigged it. They brought it back. That is totally separate to this conversation. I think that is probably going to be a success. They've obviously invested a ton of money, hundreds of dollars into it to be a success. And like you said, that's one of the new revenue arms that they are hoping that will generate billions of dollars of revenue. The other big thing, which is what we are going to talk about, is services. And, you know, a lot of people sort of saw it and were like, oh, fair enough. And a lot of people were like, hang on a second, because what they've basically done is they've started with 10 to 12 categories of services ranging from private chefs, masseuses, personal trainers, photographers, etc. And they've launched it in 250 cities around the world, and it'll just sort of spread from there. In fact, if you were to go right now on your Airbnb app, you will see under services that there are people that you can book. And the crazy thing is that you can book it right now for your city or your town, even if you aren't staying on an Airbnb, for example, right? So that's the idea. Now, from a boardroom level, from a shareholder level, it makes a ton of sense. Airbnb's growth recently has been about 5 or 6% in America. So from a shareholder point of view, they may be doubting that Airbnb could be stagnating. And obviously, this is something that they can just add money to the machine because it is obviously something in demand. And it's really interesting that you mentioned icons. Icons was something that was a PR play, very, very cleverly done, because what they did is they offered the opportunity to do some crazy things like the Barbie house and the up balloon and all these sort of cool things. And they were doing it for free. All you had to do was fill in this form. And that form was asking you all these bananas questions, crazy long questions, like a survey of like 100 questions for a reason. They wanted data, right? Data is obviously going to become one of the most valuable commodities that are out there as we move into what's moving in the future with AI and all of this robotics and stuff. But the reason why they were doing it is because they wanted to gather the data and the information. And now with this, they're able to marry it all together. There's a totally separate conversation of what we can talk about today of the future of Airbnb. My belief is that it is going to turn into search is just going to change totally. I think it's going to turn into like the Tinder of the OTA world, where there's going to be loads of swipe right, swipe lefts. But going back to services. Now, again, from a guest point of view and from an Airbnb point of view, it's amazing. From the host point of view, which is everybody in here, everybody's watching live, everybody on the replay, this is who it affects. Because you now have got all of the risk without any of the benefit. And that's why I messaged you and I said, listen, I think we need to get this on a podcast. I think we need to talk about this to spread the awareness of why I'm encouraging so many people to opt out of this.
Yeah, and something I haven't done yet, but I'm looking into it. And for those that want to opt out, because I know a lot of people don't have anybody in the comments saying they are, but let us know in the comments if you guys want to opt out or have opted out. What's that process, Mark, to do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, basically, why should we opt out? This is the thing. Why should we opt out? And this is really important. Why is that, like I said, is that you can right now, and who knows, depending on where you are in the world, there may be people doing it already because you do not get a notification if somebody's booking a service in your property. So the way that it works, so a personal trainer, for example, or a private chef, they can go and list their services on Airbnb in the back end. And a guest, once they book a stay with you, they will be prompted to go, hey, Mike, you've booked this stay. Why don't you add on a personal or private chef to your stay? They can go, they can inquire, they can book, and then that private chef will come in. Now, the reason why that is a risk, like I said, is that there are insurance companies all around the United States and all around the world now who are like going, hang on a second, who's responsible here? So let's just set the scenario. Private chef gets booked, comes into the property, but manages to, set the house on fire. Like, whose responsibility is that? Or even worse, like let's just say the personal chef arrives, trips, falls, and then has an accident and then sues. Who's responsible? Right? These are the sort of things that you've got to start to worry about from a liability point of view, but also as well from another point of view, is that they're literally letting anyone in. Yes, they're saying that they're vetting them. It's very grey. There's a ton of grey on that retrospect. And the mad thing is that they're doing all of this without really properly consulting hosts, but hosts don't get any of the benefit. I truly believe that if they'd have gone, right, we've got these services, it's amazing, it's a new thing. If a guest books, say, a private chef, and they come into your property, we'll give you a cut of the fee, like 1%, 2%. I truly believe that hosts would have been a bit more on board of it, but they're not. So you right now, you're carrying all the risk. And this is without going about the other risk, is that let's just say private chef example as well, gets booked, goes into the property while your guests are in there, and just the guest has a really bad experience. We all know how much we rely on reviews, right? And if a private chef comes in and the guest has a bad experience, they will bottle that in and they will couple that in with their stay, and they will mark you down for it at the end of their stay, whether you like it or not. And you may be thinking, well, Mark, that's like a bit dramatic, but I've legitimately had a guest book with us on Airbnb. They marked us down. They said, listen, really nice place. Staff were amazing. Food was fantastic. Stay was great, but it rained for 3 days straight. And they marked us down on a review, right?
I've had that.
And because we just know that, and that's what guests are like. And so if that is going to happen with somebody coming into your property, then like I say, you're carrying now all of the risk and none of the benefit. And so, okay, how do you opt out? Well, there's a 3-part process. And if anybody would like the wording that we are spreading around, please send me a message on Instagram at Boostly UK, so BOOSTLY UK, and just put, house rules, Airbnb rules, whatever rules, and I'll know it's come from the podcast, and I'll send it to you, but we've got the exact wording to you. So number 1, call your Airbnb agent. So call the support. You've all got the phone numbers, and just go through to somebody and just say, hey, I really want to be opted out of Airbnb services. I don't want to have it in my property. Number 2, to cover your back, send a quick message via support, whether it's email or through the chat, and just say, again, I would like to opt out of Airbnb services. Again, if you want the exact copy that we're using, let us know. And then the third thing, which is really important, is you're going to put this in the house rules of your listing. So amongst all the other things you've got in your house rules, at the very bottom, you're just going to put this bit of text that we've been using to say that you're opting out of Airbnb services. And again, once you've done that, all being well, you should get a confirmation. Now, I really hope that in the future, they'll make this easier and there'll just be a toggle. Would you like to opt in, yes or no? But the only way that they will do that truly is if we make a fuss, right? If
Mm.
we as a collective, this is why I'm going on podcasts, this is why I'm doing these posts in Facebook groups, this is why I'm going on LinkedIn and talking about this, is that if we do this en masse, then they will take action. What they're hoping for is they're just hoping for it just to pass over. And there'll be a bit of a fuss now and then nothing. But that will never make change. And they do listen. You know, to be fair to Airbnb compared to the other OTAs, they do listen. But the only way that we're going to do this is if you vote by saying, listen, I don't want to be part of this. And, you know, it'll take 5-10 minutes of your day max, but it will benefit you in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That's great advice. I was taking notes on that too. So number one, number two, send the message. And then number three, just follow up with them. Really, those are the easy steps.
Yeah, I mean, just pop it in your house rules. Again, if you've got one
House
property,
rules.
super simple. It's just one. It's just one place to do. If you've got, you know, quite a few properties, it's a bit of extra work. But again, it's just copy paste, copy paste. And again, if you message me on Instagram, it's Boostly UK, BOOSTOY UK. Just say like, you know, Airbnb rules, house rules, or whatever, and I'll just make sure you get a copy of what we're doing. So that's the big bit. And again, I'd be really interested for the people that are tuning in live with us. Who's done this? So who has managed to opt out of Airbnb services? Who has yet to send the message? Because again, you know, I've been posting in the group, I've been posting in other groups and on my own personal feeds and pages and just sort of walking people through it. And, you know, the reaction has been mixed.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting too, just opting out of that. I think they're making you go through a lot of steps too. Kind of funny. I was looking at our credit cards that we have, just personal credit cards. And I was like, I wonder what our interest rate is. You know how many like hoops I had to jump through just to figure out what our interest rate was? They hid it in like the most cryptic way in the most cryptic spots. And they just make it impossible to find out what that is. And I feel like Airbnb is probably going to do the same thing with opting out of these types of services as well. But
yeah, I mean, there has been like a few different types of scenarios. Like people have said, yeah, super simple. I called up, sorted. Some people have said that they're about to speak to 3 different people, but you know, in the long run, it'll be big. I mean, like I say, hopefully they amend it, they change it, you know, and like I said, they do listen, but we have to like do this as a collective. It can't just be me stood on my soapbox with this weird British accent and sort of telling people to do it.
mm-hmm. So what do you recommend folks do for services and not go through Airbnb? Like, you know, what we do is we have chefs, we have masseuses, we have some experiences. We just have relationships with those folks. We don't take a cut, but we at least know the chef that's coming to the house, right? What are you recommending? I think I read somewhere you also added something to your direct site, maybe the Boostly sites. Just walk us through.
Yeah, so this is the cool thing is that, again, Airbnb have done the research. They have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this, and they feel like this is the next big bet because of all of the data that they've collected has pointed to that. So they've done the research for you, and they've given us the terminology now. Homes, experiences, services. So, you know, you don't have to call it upsells anymore. You can literally call it services. And that's what we've been doing recently on all of our websites that we create now. On our website at the top in the menu bar, it just says homes, experiences, services. And the cool thing is that is the validation. So if you aren't offering this, and I know a lot of people do offer this, but I know there's a ton of people who don't offer this, then this is the time to start. This is the time to start offering it by making those relationships. And there's loads of cool ways to do it. And I'll walk you through each one. So the first one is that there's a company called The Host Co. Annie Sloan. I've done a webinar with Annie. So they offer a free store. So basically you go to Host Co, you can set up a store, whether it's upsells from checkouts to early check-ins to whatever you want to add in there, you can add in there. Number 2, if you want to do it like your own way, again, there's cool like digital guidebooks, via PMS, etc. You can start to add it in. But my advice for you would be to add it in as soon as possible, because now millions upon millions of people are going onto the app. And the really funny thing about the app and the website is that, I don't know if you've noticed this, Mike, but when I open up the app and when I open up the website, the first tab that it opens up on isn't homes, it's experiences. So Airbnb are literally forcing through A/B testing their users to go to experiences and services. So this is like a big play for them. And What you can do is you can start to add in and you can start to bring in your upsells. I've been saying for a while now that I believe that the money that you get for the actual booking should be one of the lowest money generators for their stay for your business. You should be able to add on an upsell and do the hotel method, which is, if you go to Vegas, go to any of these big hotels, they're always trying to do the upsells on you. Now we've got the ability to try. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking here. If you haven't got a private chef, if you haven't got like personal trainers or whatever that you already recommend, and you're thinking, well, where do I go and find these people? Again, Airbnb have done the research for you. You can go onto the Airbnb app. You can open up services. You can find in your area personal trainers, private chefs, and you can actually do a Google search for them and you can find them online, because these people that are on their sites are business owners. They're already professionals. Where do you think Airbnb went to go and find their services? They went online and they found them. So you can, let's just say I ran this example and I put this post on Instagram and on my personal Facebook to show you how you can utilize services to make your own contacts and relationships. I looked for a personal trainer on the Airbnb app, found her Instagram, and we sent a message. And now we can say to her, hey, we've got tons of guests that come and visit us throughout the year. They don't just book on Airbnb, they also book via other third parties and with us directly. We would love to recommend you to those guests if you'd be up for it. Now, Airbnb, just to give you a little synopsis on this, Airbnb are charging the service provider 20%. So if I were to book via Airbnb services for a private chef, Airbnb charge 20%. So you can go in and lowball them and say, hey, I'll just charge 15% commission and a referral fee if anybody books with you. Are you up for that? Which business owner would say no, right? It's free marketing advertising for them. Even if you're going to go down the route where you don't charge and you just want to make relationships and stuff just to, fill out your black book, whatever you want to do. For me, if I'm taking the risk, this extra risk, I want to be at least getting a little bit of shaving off the top to make it worth my while. But the important thing, like Mike, like you just said, is that with these, you're able to vet them. You know them either personally or through a friend of a friend or through a guest recommendation. You know who's coming into your property, right? With Airbnb services, anybody could be coming in. And that is the risk that I don't think is worth it just yet.
Yeah, 100%. Not to mention also just the relationships I've had on at least 2 occasions that I've had just with this one chef where she actually recommended our house to 2 different guests, and they ended up staying with us. And she cooked for them, but she was like, hey, your house is way better than this other house that I have a relationship with. I'm going to send my good guests to your house because you also have the other amenities too. You've got the cast iron skillet. You've got like the things that I need at your house. So like
but it works. Relationships work.
Yeah.
I've said this to Mike. I've said this to E. I've said this to loads of people many, many times. Like, your network is your net worth. And there's a story that I told on stage at Nashville at STR Wealth of becoming the go-to, right? And with our family business, we attracted families a lot. And a lot of our families, we found out, we're going on day trips to this one attraction. I contacted the attraction place and I just said, hey, a load of guests are coming to your property anyway. Is there any like discount you could do for them? And he sorted us out with a voucher. So it was a win for the guest and obviously a win for him because we were sending him free customers. And over a year, he tallied up those coupons. And by the end of the year, he had a lot. And so he called me up and said, listen, Mark, anytime your family want to come and visit this attraction, you don't have to pay. It's absolutely on the house. Brilliant. And then the cool thing is, a couple of years later, he started to do weddings, but he didn't have accommodation. So, the bride and groom, he offered weddings. The first thing they were asking is, hey, I've got family that's coming in from out of town. Where do you recommend that they stay? And we were the first person that he contacted. The cool thing about weddings is that they fill up the property months in advance, and it's only because we created those relationships, those networks, that sort of contact, and they become like your marketing. So just like the chef that you were talking about, like we had, quite a lot of this going on in Scarborough, and this was back in 2011. So it feels like a long time ago now, but it's such a like a hidden hack with business ownership.
Yeah, 100%. One thing that I was thinking about is if Airbnb really wants to expand into services, is them acquiring a company that is similar to this. I know they've acquired a couple of like AI companies, I think, but Do you see Airbnb making any types of moves like that to help
So
them with services?
Airbnb don't normally acquire. They like to build within. The
Hmm.
AI game planner company was a little bit different because that was rumored to be an acqui-hire. So the person who was in charge of that company is what they really truly wanted. So that's why they acquired the business. And obviously now within Airbnb, as we all know, AI is massive. And Brian Chesky's mentioned this a number of times, but they don't tend to buy. They like to build within because obviously they can control it a lot better. They don't have to worry about bedding in teams together. The one thing I did want to mention, and this was a really big kickback to when I talk about opting out of Airbnb services. A lot of people say, if I opt out of Airbnb services, will that impact my search ranking for my home and for my listing? And the answer is no, not at all. We've had this confirmation from a number of people. Now we've had confirmation from people within Airbnb, and it's in their help articles, is that if you opt out of services, it does not impact your search ranking on Airbnb for homes in any way, shape, or form. So hopefully that, gives you that peace of mind.
Yeah, 100%. Mark, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about on the update?
Yeah, so I feel like, again, experiences and services are two totally separate. Experiences looks good, looks great. I think the refresh has been good. I do think that there is going to be a lot more moves this year, and the categories that they've put within services is only the start. There is a lot of room available for potentially, transport, whatever else they want to dip their toe in. And they've made a big policy update behind the scenes, the off-platform policy that freaked out a lot of people. But again, the message on that is don't panic. It is not going to affect you in any way, shape, or form. The only way that it would affect you is if you were doing the tactic that you shouldn't be doing, where if a future potential guest, messages you on Airbnb and initiates that conversation on Airbnb first, those of you that are taking that conversation off Airbnb, that's what they're cracking down on. Which, at the end of the day, if Airbnb bring you that conversation, you got to honor it on Airbnb. Obviously, as soon as they walk through your door and as soon as they are your guest, you should be doing everything in your power to get that guest data, that guest communication, so that if they choose to come back or if they know anybody that would like to come into the area, then it's you that they contact directly. And that is still allowed. That is still fine. But it's what they're trying to cut down on is, and everybody knows it, and we all done it, right? Is that if somebody messages you, sends an inquiry on Airbnb, you sort of subtly try and go, hey, try and message me on, and you spell out your phone number, you know what I mean, or whatever you do to get them off Airbnb. That's what they're cracking down on. Everything else is still above board, and everything is still absolutely fine. But they're obviously starting to basically make their way to having this host marketplace. And I truly feel that they are drawing a line in the sand now, and they are truly going, we are after the hobbyist hosts, right? The hobbyist host, which, one property, nobody listening into this podcast is a hobbyist host, right? You are all doing this because you want to better your life. You want to build a business around short-term, medium-term rentals, all that good stuff. There's millions and millions of hosts who just have one listing. It's like a second or third property. They don't care. They just want to be on Airbnb. It's a hobby for them at best. It's not a business. It's not a job. That's who they're targeting now. And I truly, truly believe this. Property managers, people who've got like several properties, I think they're going, you know what, you can be on here. We're going to focus on this. And everything that they are doing, in my opinion, is pointing to that. So I feel like for the first time ever, if you are somebody who is doing this as a career, as your job, and if you are not going multi-platform, if you've not got a PMS, if you're not trying to do direct bookings, now is the time to do it. And it's no coincidence that over the last couple of weeks, we have never been busier at Boostly. Apart from COVID, which was an unbelievably busy time, now it's starting to ramp up again because people are going, right, I want to do direct bookings. Let's get us a website sorted. Let's do all those things.
I'm such a data guy. I'm over here asking ChatGPT. I'm like, what percentage of hosts one property? I'm sure Jamie's got some of that data, but
yeah. So if you go into deep research, it will be able to give you it. So from what I know to be true, and again, my numbers, I could be butchering them. Jamie would be better at this, but something along the lines of 7 million listings in total on Airbnb. Of that, there are somewhat like 2.1 million hosts or host accounts. And in the actual numbers in over, there's 85% of that number makes up between 1 property and 15 properties in your portfolio. So the majority of the hosts are sat within that 1 to 15. And I reckon if you delve down on the numbers even more, the majority of that would be in that sort of 1 to 3 mark as well. So again, they don't, they don't put their numbers out like to the point, but they do share some good numbers on Airbnb.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that we're doing at STR Secrets now is, and this is kind of a sneak peek, but we're going to be breaking up essentially the fulfillment of how we help people into 4 buckets, really. So we've got like the 1 to 5 people. So people have 1 to 5 properties. You really, at that point, you just need help acquiring more properties. You need some systems help, but not a ton. But then 5 to 20 is like, you need to hire people. You need to put in SOPs. You need to elevate yourself, out of the business to become that CEO. And then once you hit 20, it's like, all right, now you need to hire some more people, have an actual plan, have an operating system for your business. And then 20, 100 plus is like, all right, you need to start thinking about your valuation of your company, your profit margins, potentially looking at an exit at some point in the future. So it's really interesting in how we deliver and help people, but also the majority of the hosts are, that 1 to 15. I'm sure you're right. It's probably more like, 40, like out of our folks with small sample size, right? We've got about 300 people in STR Secrets that we've helped currently right now. 60% of them have 1 to 5 properties. So it's like, all right, that's a small sample size, but I'm sure that
no,
pretty close to what Airbnb is.
I think it just makes sense, right? Just makes a ton of sense because, again, very low barrier to entry. Plus, as well, I mean, these stats may change obviously as this industry becomes more professional, and regulations and things may scare a lot of people out. Obviously, the boom of 2021, 2022, you had a lot of people who were investors in a long-term rental model were like, hang on a second, I want a piece of this short-term rental pie, who are now pivoting back because there's so much properties that are out there now. But I feel like that is definitely true. I think the main thing is for everybody who is tuning into this, right? You are now, I feel like there's 3 different categories: hobbyist hosts, professional operators. And like you broke it down perfectly there, as soon as you get past those 100 properties, you've got staff, you've got team, you're a professional operator at that point. And then, it separates the hobbyist host to the professional host. And I feel like that's what the majority of us are, and the people that I speak to, and the people that are coming to STR Secrets world, it's who you speak to. It's people who want to make a career out of this. Whatever the model you're doing, whether it's your arbitrage, your management, your own, or a mixture of all of these things. But it's really important now, more than ever before, that you build a business not on someone else's land. You don't want to be having all of your eggs in the Airbnb basket, because it's happening a lot. Good people that I know are just getting listings suspended, and they're 90% reliant on Airbnb for no fault of their own, and they're just losing things and losing revenue overnight. So it's a time to sort of take stock, put a proper business together, and this is why we've been, so I've been doing this for 10 years at Boostly.
Awesome, man. Appreciate your time, man. If you guys want to connect with Mark,
yeah, go head on over. There's a couple of people I've just seen now who've been sending me message for the house rules. So just go on to Boostly UK, BOOSTLY UK. I know, Mike, you put it in the chat because my gruff northern accent, so thank you. And just send me a message and just say rules, house rules, Airbnb rules. I'll know you'll come from the pod, and I'll get a copy over of what you need to use to send them a message and pop it into your house rules to opt out of Airbnb. But if anybody has any takeaway from this, please go and opt out. And because there's a lack of questions, I like to think that everybody's watching this, but also got logging into their Airbnb account and getting ready to opt out.
All right, everybody.